Now this is the next project we're going to start on, and this is going to have to be done in multiple parts. This is Vlad's Benelli, and what he has is there's some damage, of course. The bike looks like it's been in some kind of a drop situation. This fairing itself has to be repaired. I wanted to just show some of the things that we're going to be doing on this video. We have some tabs on this that are broken. We have a piece of where the mirror would be that's totally broken away. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to show how to recreate a part when you don't have the original part. Now if we had that piece of plastic, we could carbon fiber inside here. This would be relatively easy. As it is, it's not going to be that easy. But I'll try to show the method that I use using CA and carbon fiber to do that. And actually using some O-Pee-Chee wood too. This fairing is in a lot better shape, but again, it still has some tabs. Like all these plastic parts, it's still going to need some work. Now, when I'm looking at the parts that we have to repair here, no matter what part you were repairing on the brand of motorcycle or whatever, it's important to understand these parts are made out of a plastic, relatively flexible plastic. I see there's another tab broken up here. And they are delicate. And you can do a lot of things before you even start not to have these things happen. Is not to over tighten the screws. If they're steel screws, use a drop of blue Loctite and snug them up. Don't grind on them. That's number one. Windshield screws, use those little rubber grommets, hand tight if they're aluminum screws. And God forbid once in a while to check them. Now I'm noticing I have two parts here that I have to fix. 1, 2, and 3. I see 3 that are broken. So before I could start any restoration or do any of the refinishing or any of this, and there's many hours of that, I want to get all these little repairs done. And a lot of people would have, well, they'd have no idea. We don't have that part. How are we going to fix it? Well, that's what I'm going to try to show on a close-up lens. Let's see if that works. I'm not sure. We're not real comfortable with this close-up lens. Now, step one, since I've done hundreds of these repairs already, go through my extra material. I always save the scraps, and find a piece of material that's going to be what we're actually going to use it for is just actually a pattern or a backer, one or the other. So what I can do is I can go over to the part that isn't broken and make a pattern from this piece. This is O-Pee-Chee wood, 32nd O-Pee-Chee wood. Any hobby shop in the world will have this, but I want to make a pattern of what that part looks like on the good part. Now this is the good part, and of course if we didn't have the good part, we'd have to kind of improvise here. It has a little reinforcement on the bottom, so I need to allow for that. I'll allow for that up here. Just make this piece a little bit oversized, and I know the access hole has to go up here. So now it's a relatively easy thing, now that I have this part, to just tack glue this in place. And it's got to start with a pattern. Now this is relatively simple to figure out how to do this, and I'm just using this as an example. Now, as an example, Mark has figured out very quickly how to make his own little carbon fiber tabs for the NS project. But what I'm doing here is I'm taking off some of the material. Remember, it's got to be clean and dry. I'll get in here if I can, just scuff this up, get it rough for right now. Since this piece has a good finish on it, I really don't want to make a big mess out of the other side. I just want to do the minimum and hit that with a little bit of touch-up paint. We're not going to be refinishing this panel. So next step is some thick CA, and I always buy the CA from Brodax. The reason is they have a good turnover, and all CA has a limited shelf life. If you keep it in the refrigerator, that shelf life is extended. And we buy about 6 at a time because we're repairing fairings here all the time. This is one of the staples of what we do. It seems like there's an unending supply of people that drop their bikes too, or just want to do this kind of little repair. Now, because I'm going to let this just dry normally because this is O-Pee-Chee wood. O-Pee-Chee wood is really easy to work with. You can, first off, you can cut it with scissors, but now it makes a nice little place to put my carbon fiber on there. Okay, so now we want to reinforce this with carbon fiber or e-glass. E-glass would be probably acceptable, but we do have carbon fiber. This is carbon fiber tow that we used to use to make model airplane propellers when we were in the model airplane supply business. I can cut a piece of this off, number one. Like I said, I'm not real comfortable working with the micro lens. And I don't know if this footage is going to come out acceptably. Sometime we have, and believe me, I have old cameras. We don't have Steven Spielberg's equipment here. But we're just trying to pass on information. And this is one of the things I know not everybody knows how to repair a tab that's missing on a fairing. And when you think, in this case, a Benelli fairing, even if you could buy it, they're going to want a fortune for it. So this way, you've got a little bit of, and I just want to show this before I get carried away here. Now I've got the carbon fiber glued in one dimension. I've just got to let that dry. Because then what I'm going to do, and it's probably kicked off already. Yeah, it's okay. I'm going to put some glue under here. Once somebody shows you how to do this, and I've developed this method, I'm sure I'm not the first one to do it, but I don't know who the first one is, or I'd give them the credit. But this way works. I've done it on real airplane cowlings. I've been able to fix a lot of stuff that people, old parts for, well, for Mark's bike, that NS project, for Vlad's stuff. Now, see, now that's hard material already. So now we're just going to let that dry. I'm going to repeat it over here in the corner. And now we have our backing and it's attached to the fairing nice and solid. Now the next step on this is I've trimmed it off. You can cut the carbon fiber with a scissor, of course. And I'm going to radius this edge off. We're done in the back of this tab now. Now what happens with all these little tabs, even if they're on the side covers, like the side covers of the GS are a complete pain in the ass to get work on. But we've done enough of them, like I said, to learn all the do's and don'ts. The Kawasaki, when I restored the green Kawasaki, what happened is virtually all the tabs were broken. I don't know why. The kid had rubber bands and chewing gum holding the side covers on or whatever. But we can recreate the tabs this way. It just takes a little bit of time to do this. Now what I can do with this, I just sand it so it doesn't look, what I don't want to get is a carbon fiber splinter. So I'll sand this a little bit off camera and then put on an additional coat of CA, run the CA out over here. But now I've got the basis of that part recreated, and it definitely is stronger than the part that came with the motorcycle. A lot less chance that's going to break unless somebody crashes the bike or whatever. Usually these problems all occur from over-tightening the bolts. Now I've just laid on an extra coat of thick CA. I'm using a Q-tip. It's going to take about 30 seconds to kick off. Then I'll re-sand this out. Now in my experience, I've found this to be a much better way to do it than with epoxy. Epoxy doesn't grip as much, and the strength obviously is not even in the ballpark with this material. The trouble is, you know, on a job like this, we're going to use up quite a bit of material because there's so many little tabs and so many little things that have to be fixed on this. But before we do all the cosmetic work, this is the step that has to happen first. Now we're basically done with the bottom of this right now. Now I'm not sure if you can see. Now this is the other side of this. And what's going to happen now, I'm going to have to take a piece of carbon fiber. I'm going to cut it carefully so I get the same shape in here and glue it right to this part. This is just some scrap carbon fiber we have left over from another job, so we'll be able to use it up to make that little piece. Now the final reinforcement, I took another additional piece of carbon fiber, put it right on top of this, Got it down in place. And now what? Now I need to get my sanding block. This is a lot of hand labor, but it allows you to repair things that would normally not be without carbon fiber. I don't know how you would do that. Yeah, I guess you could do it with epoxy, but yeah, another quick trick. Never use Bondo. Bondo doesn't have any strength at all. We want to smooth this out as much as possible. And when we're done, this will be pretty much, I think we're just going to have to put some silver paint right at the edge here. I don't know for sure, but again, on a job like this, what happens, the hours start to add up fast and you don't see much. You see a tab, but you don't realize that's a couple hours of work went into that. But luckily, this material is easy to work with. Mark, when he did his NS250 fairings, he had no trouble at all. He got some Brodax CA, and I gave him some carbon fiber scraps from my old business, and he was off to the races. Now we're going to have to do the same thing, put another layer of CA over that, sand it down, and that one should be coming up on being done. Now this is one of the things that is really handy to have right now. This is a roll of commercial Norton 180 sandpaper. Now what I'm going to do with this, because we're going to be using this for a lot of things on this job, so I want to cut several pieces. Now this sandpaper is much stiffer than what you buy in the store. The backing is very stiff, so it lends itself to what we're going to be doing with it now. And I'm going to show this little method that I use. Again, none of this stuff is like building a space shuttle, and once you know how to do it, the nice thing is it's done forever. Now you got two choices. You could take some contact cement, put it on this, put some contact cement on this, and make yourself a sanding block. Or you can do this, which is something I've done in the past. I've folded it over. Now see what I've done with that? Now I'll take some ordinary masking tape. It's a good trick, by the way. With rubber gloves, it's hard to work with tape. I guess anybody that does this work knows. This, because I'm going to be replacing this on a regular basis, ordinary paint stick, you make yourself a little sanding tool. Now this sanding tool is going to be very handy. I'll cut some extra paper up, but let me just show what this is for. And it is really nice to be able to do this, because we have a tight little area here to get into, and this is going to allow us to get right in there. Now even though we're not going to see this, this is going to be hidden by a bolt or a rubber washer or something. I'd like to have it flat for one reason. It puts an equal pressure on this part. And plus, because these motorcycles are, I guess, at the top of the food chain, these exotic bikes, the Bermuda and this, every little thing, everybody that looks at them is going to be looking for every little mistake they can find. Now, you probably can see that that's going to be real nice. I got to go drill a hole. Now, the part of drilling a hole, you never use an electric drill or a drill. You use a bit and a Dremel tool. So in a matter of about 2 hours, what we've done is we pretty much recreated this. The hole is oversized, so there's always a little bit of adjustment on this, and you can see in this part, this is the one that needs to be refinished, that the washer was way offset in the hole. That's why they make the hole so big and offset, because you've got to have a little bit of clearance in there. But now that's the first part of a very complex job. Now luckily, we have we're going to go through these one by one, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the next part, which is this broken part here. But now I have to go over to the other fairing, and this is the one, and I'll make a measurement of that, see if I can recreate that exactly, pretty much using the same method, and reinforcing it on the back with carbon fiber so it doesn't break again, which is, obviously this one already broke. It was rubbing on something here. And as we look around, I'm looking at this part. This part up here is broken. We're going to have to recreate that. And this is the good fairing. Now, but the real issue is going to be, and we're saving the big repair for last. This part here, I've got to make this part in midair. And you'll see, I know you'll be impressed how that goes, but that's going to be a lot of work. That might be a separate day's work. But all of these little tabs and little areas here, it's a lot of hours of work to do this. But to get it that it doesn't break again, wow, that's a big, it's a big job. But again, to buy these parts from, and I'm sure you'd have to buy them from Italy, have them shipped here by a ferry boat or whatever, I think our thing is going to really be able to save this. Now, the second part of this job that we don't have in-house yet, Vlad has a whole nother set of bodywork. This is a track day bike. It's a Benelli Tornado track bike. And this is his street bodywork. So we want to make the track bodywork, which is white and all scuzzed up. We want to make it look as nice as we possibly can too. So there's really going to be 2 or 3 parts to this job. So for this broken tab, I carefully measured the distance from the fairing to here with a little mark, which I've checked to make sure that this tab is not facing up or facing down. It's the correct distance from there. Now I'll be able to put my carbon fiber right on top of this, put a little carbon fiber behind it, and this one should be really good and strong. I don't think this one is going to break. All these tabs and all these repairs result in something that's a lot stronger than the plastic that came from the factory. That's for sure. Now in this step we have the carbon fiber reinforcement on there. The next step is going to be to basically take our tool that we made and sand, get rid of the extra, and then put some extra CA and extra carbon fiber behind that. But I think that'll be a nice repair. This one, better than what came from the factory. Now the next thing, I just have to trim that reinforcing rib down, glue it on both sides, trim that down and sand it, and then we'll move on to the next tab. Now I carefully measured that with the same distance up and down, so this tab should hold us right in the right exact position. It's got some extra CA on it, make it, if I want to sand that a little more and paint it, but it's inside the part, and this is the part we're not going to paint, so I don't want to get too cute about this. I wanted to make it flat. That part's flat enough. The bolt should fit right in there. This is reinforced fine. So the final tab on this part, as far as I can tell, unless I'm missing something, there's a tab up here. So what I need to do, go look at the other fairing, make this part, and it looks like there's a bolt hole in it too, so I'll have to make it very carefully. But I always make the tab and put the hole in last. It's just easier because you have to burn it through with a Dremel tool. And this has a little reinforcement back here, I see. Oh, okay, we can recreate that. So, but we're a few hours into this now, and I think by the end of the day, this is going to be the last part we're going to be able to get done today. And maybe tomorrow we'll try to attack that. That's going to require a lot of work getting all the goop. Now, somebody tried to fix this already, and they didn't. They made a mess out of it. I'm going to have to clean all that out with sandpaper, and then I'll show on step 2 of this project how to recreate that part. But I want to get this one done, and that pretty much ends our shop day here. If we can get that done today. Now keep in mind what we have so many projects here all at the same time. Anybody that has been to the shop this winter knows this is like crazy time. We got sometimes 4 and 5 bikes at one time here, but we are going to get this part. I'm sure when we're done with this, because Vlad has already bought the paint, I'm sure when this is done, it's going to be every bit as nice as. Now, if you look back at Mark's videos, the Honda NS restoration, boy, in the beginning, these parts were really in rough shape. Those fairing parts were really in rough shape. But you know what? In the end, they always come out nice. It's just a question. You just got to keep hammering away at it. So the first step is from our scrap box. get some wood pieces made to pattern this, because this is the high side now. I got to get the carbon fiber on the inside. That's going to be a little tricky, and then build that up on the inside and then sand this down smooth. And then the last thing, drill that hole. Here we got all the carbon fiber reinforcement in there. And the final step on this is to trim this all off, sand it, and taking a Dremel tool and put that hole, and I'll measure that up, I'll make a pattern for it, and get that hole centered right where it should be. So this day ends. We've got the tabs on this part, and this is the good part, by the way. This is the one that does not have to be repainted. I think we're basically done with this. Now, I don't know, and I'm going to suggest it to Vlad next time he's here. Let me turn this over. When we're all done with these parts, of course, I'll run a buffing wheel over them and put a nice final polish on everything. He's got to get me the decal. This is a Benelli. This is a pretty special decal. Now, one of the things, and these tabs, I think this part is ready. I don't even think this should be buffed. I think you're going to make more of a touched up. I mean, you're going to make a mess looking at that, and you don't see that tab anyway. Well, I got to find out from him. It's his bike. We'll do whatever he wants. Want to paint it green? You got plenty of green paint left. But anyway, this is going to be a really nice project when it's done. This part has to be, I have to get rid of this decal, and this is going to be a major job because the decal is under the paint. So I'm going to have to carefully block sand this off without going down into making a big crater there, a moon crater. This has to be fixed. This is going to be a Bondo job, I'm sure. I hate to do that, but I don't know if I could fill that with CA. We're going to give it a shot, though. I'm just looking around. This is going to be a major, maybe a day or two, just to fix that. But because, and it's going to be worse because somebody tried to fix it already. And that what they did here, they made a mess that I'll have to work around. But I'm going to have to reinforce the carbon fiber all the way up here, all the way around. It's going to be a big job. So, but everything we do here is a big job. We don't do the easy work. We do the work that nobody else either wants to do or can do. And the Benelli is no different. Now, when I think back, and I still have Mark's project here, so when I think back of how many stumbling blocks we had with the decals, with the body work, with some of the parts, we had to create, if I remember right, we had to create the carbon fiber reinforcements for this. Oh, I can't even remember now. Some of the tabs, all of the tabs on the body work, and these Mark actually did. We have to drill them out. We're going to do this, I guess, when the bike has to be put together before you can get these accurate. And I'm hoping in the next couple of days that, of course, Glenn is working full time, so he'll be able to sneak away for a day. The buffing up here is done. We need to mount the windshield, and no less, he's got some really tricked out ideas of what he wants to do on the wheels. So, as you can imagine, it's going to be a busy next couple of weeks as we try to get this one in the bank. And then once this one is done, we already have the paint, and it's a beautiful candy apple green paint. We'll have the paint for the track bike bodywork, which is not going to be a show quality, but we'll still do a pretty nice job. So all I can say is thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy this, the technology that we're sharing, because the whole objective of what we do is to share whatever little we do know. And thanks again for watching. So is that fun? The big Polar Express? 2 more trains over there. Trains in the attic. You got enough things to play with here, baby?
Yeah, Grandpa.
You want to buff out Glenn's motorcycle? Or would you rather play trains? Come on, let's see him go. The Polar Express.